Did you meet Ron at that time, Ron Streicher?
No, I met him later on, 1977, something like that.
Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
after, yeah, quite a long time, but 10 years after, yeah. I was, I just finished university and I was about to be in a show called Ned Kelly, and that lasted a few months. But so I met him, and then he was very, beautiful guitar player. So we made plans to work together after I finished with this musical, which is what we did. We spent a couple of years playing live, and we developed a very strong live following, but we didn't really have that much record company interest because we're a bit of a weird band. We had different personalities in the band, and ultimately I think that's really why we didn't last longer than we did, was because the personalities within the band just didn't really work, in the long term, So everyone was kind of we weren't really, because it was kind of it was an attempt at a democracy, a democratic process, which I think is a valuable thing to have in a band, But at the same time, you can waste a lot of time running through different people's ideas just for the sake of it, and they might not necessarily be good ideas, or they might not necessarily be good songs. So maybe when you're out playing one night, you would have played a bunch of songs, and say somebody would come to see you, and they go, "Well, I don't really like those songs," because maybe they weren't that good, And rather than everybody kind of going, "Okay, let's play the best songs we've got," we tended to just play a song because somebody had written it,
Right.
So maybe it took a bit longer, and but I seem to get I hit a bit of a vein with the band because I had an immediate vehicle, and they were great to play with, and so I started to write a lot of songs, and Ron was writing some songs, and I wrote "Be Good Johnny" with Greg, and so that was a kind of a cool song to come up with, and anyway, we got one. There was a guy who worked for CBS Records, and he was in sales. He wasn't an A&R guy, but we used to play at this bar every Wednesday night called the Pier Hotel in Frankston, and there was hardly anybody came. It's a big room. It held 1,000 people, and maybe 200 people would come every Wednesday night. And he used to come. He was a huge fan. So one day he went into CBS Records, and he nailed people's telephones to the table, and he redirected the car park and put "Men at Work" signs everywhere to get all the executives' attention. And so he did that one day, and so the A&R guy from CBS came down to see us because of that, because there was this huge fan within the company. But he didn't have any power, but he managed to get their attention. So the A&R guy came down to see us, and he saw the potential in the songs. And there happened to be, coincidentally, an American record producer in Melbourne at the time, a guy called Peter McKeon, who ended up producing the first two albums. And so Peter Carpin came down, and he, wanted to sign the band. And we only got a deal for a single at first, because they didn't have any confidence in us, really, So we did a deal for a single, which was "Who Could It Be Now?" and we released that, and it went to number 2 or something. So then we did the album. And so everything seemed to kind of everything seemed to fall into place. I mean, we were very ambitious, and we really wanted to become successful. And we wanted to become successful not only in Australia, but in the rest of the world. So we weren't really interested in signing a record deal which was just based in Australia. We always wanted to sign to a multinational, and CBS were the only, which became Sony. They were the only label that were interested, which suited us. And it was a terrible, terrible deal, almost a criminal deal. I think we were on sort of like 4 or 5 points or something like that, as opposed to say 14 when you get a record deal now. So it was a horrible deal,
Your second or third one.
But it was a record deal, and we wanted to make a record, so that's what we did. And within that deal, there were there was overseas reversion clauses. In other words, that any CBS label that wanted to release the album in any territory could, obviously, because it was a multinational company. So, and there was a convention coincidentally at that time as well in somewhere like Miami or somewhere like that, I think it was. and Carpenter took the single, and everyone heard the song. And he just gave them singles. It didn't tell them who the band was. It just had "Who Can It Be Now" on it, handed them all out. And so kind of various CBS labels around the world kind of fell in love with us, and they put out the single, and it did well, and then they released the album. So it had this spotfire effect of it kind of happening in different parts of the world, and till it reached a critical mass, and then it just kind of took off. And America was really the last country to really pick up on the band. It was late, because it's this big monster, the biggest market in the world, but it's very slow. And our album was rejected twice in America by the A&R department. They didn't have all that much confidence in it. So, and its release was forced. Was their decision not to release was overridden by Dick Asher, the guy who ran the label at the time, because Peter Carpenter, the guy who signed us, used to work for him. So he called him and said, you got to put this album out. It's going to work, So, and we opened up for Fleetwood Mac, and there was a whole lots of things that happened that were conspiring to create our success. Yeah, MTV did have a big effect. It was like MTV really, really helped, but in many ways, I don't think it would have happened because we were still a radio band. I don't think MTV would have played the videos unless it was already happening at radio, But that was the icing on the cake. That's what really put it through the roof was them. Plus, I think they only had about 4 videos there anyway. They kept on playing them over and over again.